let's get started on smoking on this dipshit pack. Joe Lieberman, giant piece of shit. Literally almost single-handedly responsible for not having universal health care in this country. Just now him, honestly.
Joe Lieberman, the former senator and vice presidential candidate.
Joe Lieberman's entire goal in Congress is basically to play the role of spoiler, okay?
Yesterday at
famous
the age
spoiler
of 82.
guy.
He was known for
he was the OG spoiler. Like, I mean, he wasn't the OG spoiler, but like he was the spoiler for the Obama administration.
2000, Joe Lieberman came within just a few hundred votes in Florida of becoming the first Jewish vice president in American history. As he accepted the Democratic nomination that year, he vowed to do everything he could to help his party win the White House.
And I want you to know tonight that I will work my heart out to make Al Gore the next president of the United States.
Democrats loved it, but Lieberman was never one to put party first. And just 8 years later, he was once again center stage at a party convention. This time, the Republican convention, endorsing his friend John McCain.
Being a Democrat or a Republican is important, but it is nowhere near as important as being an American.
I hate this piece of shit so goddamn much. Like OG early Christian cinema, dumb bullshit motherfucker. Can you be nicer to Connecticut now that one of our demons are gone? By the way, it's pretty funny because, like, you know how I always have the smoke for Connecticut? Like, he's one of the guys. He's one of the reasons why I have the smoke for Connecticut. Him and what's his face? Is it Chris Murphy or Chris Coons? No, it's Chris Murphy, right? It's like I can't stand this motherfucker. I could not stand this motherfucker. And I can't stand Chris Murphy. Just so annoying. This guy went off on Joe Lieberman.
Did do personally. So
yeah. Okay, look, see? Obama boys got the smoke for Joe. Smoking on the dead ops pack. John Favreau. Shocking. Because remember, these guys are like civility politics guys. Or not John Favreau, John Lovett. Sorry. What am I saying? Favreau is also a part of Crooked Media. These are the Pod Johns. Remember, they were Obama speechwriters. So, of course, they despise Joseph Lieberman for tanking a big chunk of Obama's like signature accomplishments, especially in the form of the ACA. Like, there was a supermajority in the Democratic Party, and of course, Joe Lieberman basically did the classic rotating villain and cooked it.
After the public option was killed from Obamacare, there was a compromise proposal. Now, of course, Obamacare is a compromise, and the public option is a compromise. So this was a compromise on a compromise on a compromise. And the compromise was that near seniors, people 55 and older, would be allowed to buy Medicare. I'm sorry for going to the details, but to me, this is one of the most galling and despicable things a person's ever done.
I suspect Lovett made this a while back, for the record. I suspect that this is old and it's being resurfaced now because, like, John Lovett did this back in the day, probably, and it's being resurfaced now.
The Medicare buy-in, 55 plus. So what that means is near seniors can buy into a public option. My parents would have loved to have this. They were counting down the days till they were eligible for Medicare because their premiums were going up because they were older, and people that are nearing retirement are sicker and require more medical care than younger people because your bodies are falling apart because of the vicissitudes of evolution, and it really sucks. Not one part of us gets better. And that's the deal. I don't make the rules. I wish I did. It'd be better. They'd be different rules. I don't know how much different. The Medicare buy-in is exactly the kind of thing that a moderate like Joe Lieberman should support. It was fiscally responsible, it was practical, it solved a problem, it was moral, it was just, it was a compromise, it was something Democrats all agreed with, but he has insurance companies in his state, and so he personally kills it. And when you get rid of the Medicare buy-in, so the Medicare buy-in means that near seniors pay less for insurance. It means younger people that are not near seniors pay less for insurance because you just removed a bunch of older people out of the population of people buying insurance, so insurance premiums on the whole go down. Medicare is more efficient than the private system, so insurance costs for healthcare costs for the whole country go down. Care gets better because Medicare provides excellent care. The only people that pay are the insurance companies. But as a favor to the insurance companies in his state, Joe Lieberman killed the Medicare buy-in himself. He was the 60th vote. If he said yes,
Yep, 100%. That's it. That's like, this is the most famous moment for Joe Lieberman's career in a sea of back and forth. Like, I'm an American. I care about America. Like, I'm a compromise guy. That was his signature accomplishment in his life. And honestly, that's just pure evil, even though it doesn't track as pure evil. This is the problem. People who operate at the behest of pharmaceutical companies, at the behest of insurance providers, that do stuff like this, that legitimately impact the life of millions, hundreds of millions of innocent civilians, never read as villains. We don't think about them as villains. What that man did is basically comic book villain shit. And that's why when there are instances like elderly statesmen getting celebrated by the media for falling on their and dying at their old age, a beautiful future that they did not offer to millions of Americans as a consequence of their actions at the behest of American corporations, because I'm sure plenty of Americans would love to die in their old age around their family when they fall on their at the age of like 80 or whatever. But they never got there because they never got the health care, because we don't have free health care in this country. That guy, actual villain.
It would have been in there, and every person in this room is paying more for healthcare because of Joe Lieberman. And so the idea that Joe Lieberman is to come in and lecture us what's good for working families and good for the Democratic Party, he can go himself. Joe,
like, that's it. He's right. That way he literally fell and died, dude. Fuck him, Lamau, that owns. That's what I heard. I don't know. I heard he fell and died from NPR, and I don't think NPR is lying to me. It's because his villainy has been alienated and safely separated from the actual harm to the point that he appears civil instead of him using a pen to kill millions of people. Imagine if someone did that physically, like used a pen as a weapon. Much more gruesome and easy to comprehend. No, because our system is designed to churn out these results, and because of the division of labor in every aspect of our existence, it doesn't track as like a singular person being evil, but that is exactly what it is. And it's not even like a singular person. There's a lot of people that are also just as evil, but it's like kind of crazy to think about, because like this guy's got bodies, but we don't ever think about it like that. We don't think about like this guy having bodies, okay, to his name. I don't know. Joe Lieberman is the failure of liberalism. You cannot talk about Joe Lieberman without talking about liberalism's many different glaring, obvious failures. Joe Lieberman is a deity, is yet another great figure of the rotating villain that is embedded in the Democratic Party. It is inside of their infrastructure that the Democratic Party basically relies on. And the reality is that we need that. We need the Joe Liebermans. Like, the Democrats need the Joe Liebermans. They have to have their own internal villains, so they don't just shit on the Republican Party, God forbid. They have to make it easier for the Republicans to win stuff. And yeah, Joe Lieberman, Kirsten Sinema, Joe Manchin. Here's my warning to all the up-and-comer rotating villain Democrats out there, like that sexy mechanic lady from what's his face, from I think she was from Colorado with the tattoos, like the alt chick. She's not even a mechanic. She owns an auto shop. What the fuck was her name? Anyway, you'll know more about her in the future. Yeah, thank you, Marie Gluesenkamp Perez, the Problem Solvers Caucus, John Fetterman. Let me tell you, she's not from Colorado. She's from Washington. You will be remembered in infamy, but not in a good way, but exactly in the same way that we're on Joe Lieberman. Many of you think you'll make a name for yourselves and you'll live comfortably, and you will be remembered fondly. You will not be remembered fondly. We will on your graves once you are long gone for all of the crimes, for all of the villainous behavior that you subjected the American population to, you subjected the global population to. We will remember them and we'll shit on you. You will not be remembered fondly. So if that's all you care about, and many of these dipshits are self-interested and they do care about that, if you don't want to have a graveyard soaked in piss, then figure it out. Get your shit together.
Lieberman says in this that Joe Crowley's re-election would be evidence that Democrats are capable of governing again. We are the only governing party this country has had, and the problem with the sleazy people like Joe Lieberman who do no labels and all that bullshit is they look at our politics right now and they would rather say that both parties are to blame than admit the truth, which is we have one party that's lost its mind.
Depending on which way our politics sway in the next 30 years, they may be seen as heroes. Not really. They're still like seen as partisan by the Republicans who will say like, oh, well, he was a Democrat, so he's like a baby-eating vampire. It's just like the Democratic Party itself will most likely not hail them as heroes because their job is to be a ruiner of the agenda. Is Fetterman on the same level? I thought he was less a roadblock for legislation and more a genocide pervert. Yeah, he is. I mean, look at his attitude on immigration and shit. You know what I mean?
McCain later said he came close to picking Lieberman to be his running mate. Joe Lieberman served 24 years in the Senate, representing his home state of Connecticut. He was a progressive on most domestic issues and a hawk on foreign policy, a strong supporter of both wars in Iraq.
This is a battle in the war on terrorism. Failure and defeat is not an option.
Supporting both Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden in their campaigns against Donald Trump. But this time, he has helped lead the effort by No Labels, a group he co-founded to run a bipartisan third-party ticket to take on both Trump and Biden. In an interview just last week, appearing a little weaker, but his conviction as strong as ever, he made the case for a bipartisan presidential ticket.
We'll begin to solve our problems, and we'll stop fighting each other all the time, which is what the Republicans and Democrats.
Yeah, we gotta stop fighting each other all the time and just fight more Muslims. Ghoul, bro, sucks dick and ass. Here.
Iraq.
Joe Lieberman was a public servant who clearly cared about America and cared about his family and friends. If we're assessing legacies, however, like Mehdi you don't have to suck his cock, man. You don't work at MSNBC anymore, okay? I just hate this like civility bullshit. He like literally has to do that. Oh, he cared about Americans. It's like, no, he was not a public servant, okay? He was a public villain. Fuck that guy. Like, actual piece of shit. Yeah, here. No remorse for the Iraq war by this ghoul.
I got to ask you about Iraq. We just saw the 20th anniversary of 9/11, the end of the Afghan war. You have someone like Chris Murphy now representing Connecticut that you sat in for the Senate. He's very critical of the Iraq war. Have you disowned it? You know, as recently as 2015, 2016, you were still saying you thought it was...
Yeah, someone like Chris Murphy is very critical of the Iraq war because it's now allowed and appropriate to say that the Iraq war was bad, even though it is objectively bad and was objectively bad. But like Chris Murphy also is like talking about doing coups, talking about fucking Venezuela, talking about America interfering in the affairs of other countries all around the world. Like Chris Murphy, I'm sure is, you know, he's the type of dude who's not very upset about what's going on in Gaza, for example. So the notion that like he's somehow different is silly. This guy is just an extra piece of shit. He's an old school piece of shit who still maintained his piece of shit attitude when all the other people that were like champions of the Iraq war in the same way that Lieberman was recognized that like that's no longer in fashion, and therefore you have to retriangulate and act like you were never fully on board with it. Anyway, do you just hate all old people? No, just like evil old people. I think you misunderstand. Like Joe Lieberman is just like an evil piece of shit. He's a uniquely bad guy. Don't make fun of him. It's grown a lot under that hat since 2017. I think you just hate old people. Bro, what do you mean? I'm an old person. Also, you know who actually hates old people? Joe Lieberman. Because guess what, dude? He worked tirelessly to deny them health care. Hello? What are we talking about? Who do you think hates old people more? I can understand why you think I just have like a natural anti-old person position though. Because like a lot of people that do live to be old and get fame are kind of evil under capitalism. So you do basically see me shit on old people that recently died all the time because a lot of those guys who get like positive media coverage are unfortunately getting positive media coverage because they're evil. That's it. Maybe I should do like a power hour of like the good old people that pass away. You know what I mean? My dad was a Democratic superdelegate for years. None of what HasanAbi is saying is out of pocket. Joe Lieberman was a piece of shit. Yeah, it's funny because like old school Democrats kind of despise him too. Like Democrats that have been around and are like partisan party loyalists also hate him because of what he has done. It's like, imagine all the anger and resentment you feel towards Kirsten Sinema. That's Joe Lieberman, Maggie Hassan, Kirsten Sinema, Joe Manchin. These are all the Joe Liebermans of today. Joe Lieberman is the Kirsten Sinema of yesteryear. That's it. So like a lot of the party loyalists also hate him for understandable reasons because he sucks.